They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in, episode number 75, Train and Grose, B-Train, Bertrand Berry, Mike Grose, and Sean Cressman. Thanks for tuning in. We're at Train Station Studios in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona.
You know, there's something about the number 75 this year. My dad turned 75 in November. You're talking about NBA, the all 75 top 75 players in NBA history. A lot of debate going on about who's top 75, and of course, we're doing it on the 75th show.
75th edition of Train and Grose. And typically, I do a little prep for this podcast. So I went into the archives, and what I usually do is when we do episode 64.
Who wore it best?
Number 75, who wore it best?
And there was, as you showed me, I thought it was only one. Because when you first gave me the number 75, I thought, hey, Mean Joe Green, that's it, that's the list. But
And that should be, I think, at the top.
I made an executive decision, and I'm going to give it to Mean Joe Green.
Okay.
But it wasn't the slam dunk decision
that we thought it was.
But we'll do this.
Yeah.
Joe Green, of course, part of the Steel Curtain, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
4 Super Bowls.
Greatest commercial of all time.
One of the greatest commercials of all time.
Hey, kid, catch.
Beautiful Temple, Texas. You ever been to Temple, Texas?
I have been to Temple, Texas.
He played high school football at Temple, Texas, and then went to the University of
Dallas.
North Texas.
North Texas.
And
in Denton.
And their nickname is the
Eagles, I believe.
Mean Green.
Oh, God, how did I forget that? The Mean Green.
They're the Mean. Did they recruit you?
No, they did not.
You didn't even get a letter from them?
I think I got a letter, but
on?
they didn't, it was just one of those, fill out the questionnaire sort of deal. Yeah.
Notre Dame, North
Texas. No disrespect to North Texas.
Well, I think it's cool. They're the Mean Green, and, of course, he's Mean Joe Green.
Yeah.
Anyways, check this list out, though. So, and you just missed Joe Green when he was coaching with the Cardinals.
By a year. By a single year.
Yeah.
Hey, I missed him.
And you said to me, they blew that whole staff out,
Yeah.
which I get. But on the other side of the coin, I'm like, how do you fire Joe Green? But he just got swept out with everything.
Yeah, but, it was one of those he landed on his feet.
You ever met him?
Oh, yes, I have met Joe Green. He's a big man. He's got some big hands, huge, powerful hands, very strong. And he's a man that if you look him in the eye, you may not feel quite the same because he evokes fear.
Yeah. All right, check this list out. Here are my other choices. Jonathan Ogden.
Wow. Played against him. Hall of Famer.
Forrest Gregg.
Hang on a second. Let's bounce back. What kind of player?
Oh.
Jonathan Ogden?
Yeah, just physically.
A mauler. He was 6'8". He was as big as they came. I actually had the fortune of going against him in a regular season game and in my one and only Pro Bowl. And there's a picture of him basically swallowing me up in the Pro Bowl. It's like I went into him and I disappeared because he was a mountain of a man. 6'8", longest arms you've ever seen, and very, very skilled, very light on his feet. He was a great, great football player.
Forrest Gregg.
Forrest Gregg, hell of a coach.
Hell of a coach and one of the all-time great Packer players.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's hard because you can look not just in the NFL, you can look through sports in general, and guys that were great players
don't always translate to great coaches.
Hardly ever.
Yeah.
And so he was an all-time great on both counts.
That's right.
And then Howie Long.
Howie Long, my goodness. You think about the stare. Everybody always talks about the stare. When he get that far away look, it was Howie time. And Sean can speak to that better than I can, but as a fellow defensive lineman, I've studied a lot of tape on Howie Long, and some of his moves, they're still not able to duplicate to this day.
And Howie Long, too, man, not a big school, went to Villanova.
Yeah.
And that goes to the old saying, if you got talent and they think you can play, they'll find you.
Yeah.
And then making the flat top sexy.
The mullet sexy.
He started with the mullet.
Yeah.
Transition to the flat top.
Now to the flat top. And
became a movie star, TV star. He's still
right. That movie with Christian Slater, Face Off.
Yeah.
Was it Face Off he was in?
Yes.
Was that the one he was in?
I'm pretty sure it was, and if I'm wrong, somebody.
Because I thought Face Off was John Travolta and
those were the lead characters.
Okay.
Yes. And Nicolas Cage.
Nick Cage.
Yeah.
That's right.
But Howie Long was like the leader of the military.
Yes.
Military
That's right.
guys.
Yes.
He was also the only Raiders name I could get Lindsay to agree to name our dog. So our dog is named Howie.
Wow.
Because I went down the whole list. I said Bo, because my affinity for Bo Jackson, you guys know that. She said she already had a dog named Bo, so she couldn't do that. So I'm going down the list. Al Davis, Tim Brown. Going down the whole list. I said Howie for Howie Long, and she goes, that's the one.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that's it.
Also, one of the few guys to have a Super Bowl with his son, Chris
right.
Long. Mm-hmm. And
That's
Chris
right.
Long has 2, just like Howie. Howie has 2, Chris Long has 2.
Look at that. And then finally, save the best for last, I think, Deacon Jones.
Oh, my God. Deacon Jones, I could go on and on about Deacon Jones. In 2005, my God rest Deacon Jones' soul, 2005 came to my house, and we did a segment, I believe it was for Under the Helmet, a thing that they were doing with the NFLPA back then. And we filmed a segment, and we played pool, and he gave stories about how much he made, and when sacks were not an official stat when he played. And he said I believe he said in 1 year he had like 43 quarterback knockdowns. That's what he called them. He didn't call them sacks. He called quarterback knockdowns. Said he knocked the quarterback down that many times. And he said with the money that I was making and what he made, he said, boy, he'd have been a very rich man.
Oh, my goodness. Can you even?
Yeah. I mean, stories for days, Mike. I mean, one of the biggest figures you'll ever meet as far as funny, jokes, smart, intelligent. He had the whole package. I mean, the head slap. I mean, everything about Deacon Jones was superstar.
All right, so when Deacon Jones is coming over to the house, and we know how you, your hospitality is top notch.
Yes.
We get it every week here at Train Station. What do you offer Deacon Jones?
Anything he
what was
wants.
what was on the spread?
Whatever he wanted. Now, the thing about it was we had to get right to work because he was on a limited
Gotcha.
time schedule because
All
he
right.
had to fly back out to California. And so he flew in. He came straight to my house. And, of course, there were a few people there, cameras. They were getting it all set up. And then Deacon comes in. He's got this coat on. He's got this hat on backwards, I believe. And he's like, I'm looking for an official quarterback sacker. And, the size difference is staggering. When you see, I showed you the picture of Deacon and myself. And, I mean, the size requirements for defensive ends have changed a little bit over the years. But what a great man, a great player. And I was fortunate enough to get to meet him and spend some time with him.
Well, and you look at it, you talk about how much money he was making or maybe not making. Back in
the
that
NFL,
time frame.
yes.
He was drafted out of Mississippi Valley State. He started at South Carolina State.
Okay.
Finished up at Mississippi Valley
Okay.
State and drafted in 1961. He was a 14th round pick.
Wow.
But his career went from 1961 to 1974.
Can you imagine 13 players better than Deacon Jones in that draft? And he went in the 13th round.
No.
A 14th round.
14th round. To your point, the NFL thought there was 185 players better than Deacon Jones in
Wow.
1961.
Wow. I mean, my goodness.
And going back to the wear and tear and just because got $4,500 a year,
Ugh.
he had to have a part-time job because
Yeah.
he was not
You
a
weren't gonna
full-time
make it.
football player
Yeah,
making
you weren't gonna make it.
$4,500.
No,
not even back then.
And that's why camps had to be 6 weeks, 7 weeks long because you had to get yourself in shape.
Yeah.
Because you were doing another job, Mike. You had a whole entirely different career playing football back then. That was really kind of a hobby, like something that you did on the side. The NFL was not what it is today. But the thing that we have to do, we have to really give them a lot of credit, that generation, for popularizing the game and making it what it is today, because without them laying the foundation, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the success that we have today.
And I'll tweet it out on Training Grose. You talk about how, as his career grew, how he transcended things. He played almost his entire career in Southern California, partly for the Chargers, partly for the Rams.
Yeah, mostly for the Rams.
And then he, one of those great Miller Lite commercials back in the day.
Can they see this picture? Can they see this as I put this up here?
Bring it down a little. There you go, right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Me and Deke, man.
Send me that. I'll tweet that out as well.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Deke.
Yeah, the Miller Lite commercials. I just looked it up. I didn't know this. He was on the Brady Bunch. Like he parlayed that football persona into that was his job after the fact.
Yeah.
He was doing Haggard clothing commercials.
Mike, he was a superstar. He was like a real bona fide star. I mean, he had a signature move with the head slap that was actually banned by the NFL. And you talk about a productive player, a guy that was as mean and as intimidating as they come, but when you sit down and you have a conversation with him, Mike, you wouldn't football wouldn't be the first thing that you thought of when you thought of Deacon Jones. He was that well spoken, that articulate.
And before we pivot out of this, real quickly, we were talking about it before we started recording. Mississippi Valley State, South Carolina State, historically black colleges, and he's from Florida.
Yep.
Florida State didn't recruit him.
Nope.
Florida didn't recruit him.
Miami
didn't recruit him.
Nope.
And so,
Central Florida didn't recruit him.
You talk about how, finding the talent, and there's some kind of special, something that I saw, and I got to find this, on HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities and the sports programs.
Yep.
How back in the day, the Deacon Joneses of the world went to HBCUs.
They had no choice.
And then it kind of, all of a sudden, teams figured out or schools figured out, hey, wait a minute.
Yep.
And so then, they kind of fell by the wayside and struggled a little bit. And now Deion Sanders, Eddie George, others, we've talked about this, bringing it back. Just kind of an interesting side note to this whole story.
No doubt about it. But when you start talking about the number 75, there have been some all-time greats to wear that number. And when you share the company and that number with that type of clientele, my goodness, Mike, that number, you've got to be a baller to wear that number.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are here mid-June, and the NBA Finals still ongoing.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, I don't even know what to say.
That's the list. That's the list.
They're up 3-2.
Yes.
And
they can finish it off tomorrow.
It's a gimpy ankle, whatever, but...
Nah, he said he was fine. To his credit,
I know he
said
did,
he was fine.
but... they played a montage. I know TV has to build it up, the drama.
Sure.
But he's not a big man.
No, he's not.
And he's taken some punishment, but it's not slowing him down at all.
No.
And they're getting ready to close out a really good and a really solid defensive team. We talked about it last week, a bigger team in the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, got the reigning Defensive Player of the Year in Marcus Smart, and I think Ime Udoka, I think he should have gotten consideration for Coach of the Year. Of course, we know it went to the right coach here with Monty Williams and what they were able to do in the regular season. But I look at Steph Curry, and there's been so much talk about him, Mike, and it's not always great talk. I think a lot of times people take shots at Steph Curry for whatever reason. Sometimes people just don't like him because he's got the baby face. He's got, 2 max contracts. I mean, he's gotten all the attention. He's got 3 championships, 2 MVPs, 1 unanimous MVP, the only unanimous MVP in league history. And I think a lot of people are just jealous of Steph Curry for whatever reason. But when you look at this series and you look at where they came from the previous 2 years, Mike, you got to give Steph Curry a lot of credit. And a lot of times people look at the Golden State Warriors and they wonder, what is the formula for success? Is it Steve Kerr? Is it Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green as the glue guys that makes this thing run? I truly believe that it is Steph Curry is the engine that makes this Golden State Warriors team go. And the fact that he is finally going to get his just due, I believe, and be named MVP, because I do believe ultimately Golden State will win in either 6 or 7. And I think it's been one of those long time coming sort of situations where everybody wants to find a but in reference to Steph Curry. Yeah, he's good, but he never won the Finals MVP. That was Kevin Durant. He needed Kevin Durant to win the MVP. He didn't win it in 2015 because they gave it to Andre Iguodala. Oh, by the way, when LeBron James was giving him a hot 35 per game. So, you can say what you want about who was deserving of the MVP, but I think if he were able to get Finals MVP, I think that's the last award and that's the last thing on his resume that he could check off where you can say Steph Curry deserves to be in the top 10 in all-time great players.
Steph Curry, 34 years old, and still, to your point, a babyface.
Babyface assassin.
Right.
Will shoot your lights out.
So I agree with you. They'll close it out here, 6, 7. They'll get this ring.
Yep.
Are they a dynasty?
Yes. 6 finals in 8 years, Mike. You know the other team that went to 6 finals in 8 years? That would be the Chicago Bulls.
Right.
The 90s Chicago Bulls with one Michael Jeffrey Jordan. So if you consider the Michael Jordan Bulls a dynasty, now granted, the Bulls had more championships than the Golden State Warriors, but to get to 6 out of 8, that's very, very impressive. And we all know, had they been healthy, they would have beaten Toronto. Yeah. And had the NBA not suspended Draymond Green for whatever they wanted to call it against that dust up with LeBron James, I think they would have been perfect in the finals.
Well, and you look at how I don't want to say they bottomed out. They just were the victim of a lot of unfortunate luck.
Injuries.
For 2 years.
Injuries, yeah.
But to come back from where they were and now be on the verge of winning another NBA title, I think that absolutely puts them in that dynasty conversation. And it's interesting. Maybe it's the times we live in because people don't want to give that up as easily.
Sure.
Like when you're living through the Chicago Bulls, which we all did, there was no question.
They were the best team.
Right. And the Lakers time, back in Showtime.
And the Celtics back
then. And the
there.
Celtics, and of course the Detroit Pistons Bad Boys, one of the all-time great dynasties.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Right.
Because those were teams that you saw, they were consistent. They got to more than one finals. They didn't just get to one and they were a one-hit wonder. They were back multiple times. They had recognizable stars, Mike. And I think the style of play of the Golden State Warriors has changed the game. Steph Curry single-handedly has changed the way basketball is being played. Now, any player under 6'4" believes that they can go to the NBA and that they can shoot a ball from half court and they can make it on a consistent basis.
And the other thing that we talked about last week was the presence or lack thereof, or impact or lack thereof, from Draymond Green. And I think how attentive, if that's the right word, or that leadership role that Steph Curry occupies, he addressed that in the post-game comments and said, if you're going to talk about Draymond, you got to look at more than just points. You got to look at what he really means, what he brings to this team, his presence on the court, and how important he is as our leader.
Yes.
That's Steph Curry talking about Draymond Green.
Yes.
Whether he believes he's the leader or not, propping up his guy.
Yep.
And when Draymond Green hears that and knows that, even if the shot's not falling, he's going to run through a brick wall for Steph Curry.
I don't understand why anybody could really root against Steph Curry. If you like other teams, I get you can cheer for your team.
Sure.
But when you take Steph Curry at face value, has to be one of the more likable superstars that you've ever seen. Right. A guy that came from a NBA family. His father Dale was a great shooter, and his brother is a great shooter. And Seth Curry out there with the Brooklyn Nets now. You look at his life, Mike. I think his life has been one of those storybook type lives, fairy tale, where you grow up, at dad's hip, you're shooting when they're at shoot around, and he's putting up shots, and it's like the little guy, how cute on the other end, he's putting up shots, but he's actually getting buckets like they're going in.
Well, it's what you were talking about with Larry
really
Fitzgerald.
Good. Yes,
Larry Fitzgerald grew up around that.
That's right.
And
that's right.
He took it all in.
Got
and took a lot of the
greats.
good.
Yes.
And I think the same obviously can be said for Steph Curry.
Absolutely. And the fact that he's going to have a gold jacket when his career is all said and done, and if he has as many championship rings as LeBron James, I think you have to put him in a different category.
Yeah, you do. And the other thing too, with the Warriors, and I know we live here in Phoenix, and you if you're the Phoenix
everybody's
fan,
salty right now.
Everybody's salty about the Warriors, and they still are salty about the Spurs. And
but
I don't see how, to your point, I don't see how you cannot like this team. And I understand if you're a fan of another team. I grew up a Detroit fan. You will never get me to say something good about the Bulls. I get it.
Right.
I get it. But I think you have to have a level of appreciation.
Come on, there's got to be something. I mean, it's one of the greatest dynasties in sports history.
Right.
There it is. See? God, I knew I'd get him to say something nice
I just
about
said
the
that.
Bulls.
No. I mean, he's never come off as a hater with Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And I think anybody because I'll be the first to say my Houston Rockets benefited tremendously from Jordan taking 2 years off, because those were the 2 championship years that my Rockets were able to finish that deal. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'll be the first to say, hey, thank you very much, Michael Jordan, and for taking a hiatus. But
or the Suns choking away, 3-1 leads in back-to-back years. I mean, it had something to do with it.
I mean, hey, somebody had to beat
away.
Somebody had to beat him. So it is what it is. And, that's why I'm from Houston to this day, not Houston. Thank you so much. Houston. That's right.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. By the time we reconvene a week from now, we will have a new NBA champion. They're giving them extra days. Got a little bit of.
I like it. I think because you want the product, for one, is TV, Mike.
Oh,
and I think, two, you want these guys at their best. You want them healthy. You want them rested, because you want to see the best possible basketball that you can get.
Well, and you called it out last week. The ESPN family, which includes ABC, now is also the home of the National Hockey League Stanley Cup Finals. So they had to sandwich in hockey games opposite basketball games, since both of them are running their championships simultaneously. And so, to your point, TV's calling the shots here.
Mike, I on a side note, hockey has played this as well as they possibly could have. The fact that they are on ESPN, Mike, and they've been on the entire time.
Yeah.
They're in the conversation of sports now,
And they're on ABC tonight.
they're on ABC,
Yeah.
and they're getting prime time attention. I can't tell you how important that is. And they were off to, speaking of the Colorado and Tampa Bay, the Colorado Avalanche were off to a 2-0 start within like the first 10 minutes. It's like these guys are blitzing everybody right now.
3-3 with 5 minutes left in regulation.
It's 3-3.
Yeah.
It's something
Tampa
about
Bay. Tampa
you
Bay.
got to kill them. You've got to figuratively. You figuratively have got to kill them in order to take them out, because we saw them down. I believe they were down 3-1 in the opening round. Came back, and you get it to a game 7. That championship medal was going to come back and
You talk about dynasties. This Tampa Bay Lightning team that Steve Yzerman assembled. He's no longer with the club, but he assembled this core.
Yeah.
This could go down in the early 2020s as a dynasty for the NHL.
Quietly, could Steve Yzerman be a Jerry West of the NHL?
We don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of hockey on this, but Steve Yzerman goes home. He's the general manager of his team where he made his name as a player. And if he can resurrect that team and bring them to where the Lightning are right now, I think there's no question. I think there's absolutely no question. And I think what it shows you is that he's not afraid to take on a challenge, because he could have stayed in Tampa and just ridden this out and kept adding pieces, and he went home to his franchise that let him become the player that he was, and he's got a hell of a job in front of him, because this is not the Red Wings that you remember from back in the 90s and early 2000s.
No doubt about it.
Without any question about that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good point. Real quickly before we get out of here, and you talk about the impact of TV and sports and all that, the other thing that I know secretly people are not happy with the Lightning because they eliminated the Rangers, NBA, NHL, all of them.
Maybe
Maybe
not
the NFL.
New York
but
market.
New York market.
Absolutely.
When you have a 7-game series and you can deliver the New York market,
It's gold.
yeah.
It's
so
gold.
That's the one drawback there. But the NHL is putting on another great postseason. All right, we'll step aside. On the other side, we're going to get into something. I asked you about this ahead of time.
Sure.
Some sad news came out of the NFL about 10 days ago. We didn't touch on it, and then I saw another story kind of picking up on it, and we want to visit that. That's coming up next on Train and Grose.
Train and Grose.
Write stuff down, you forget to do it. So I'm getting old. I make a list, and I forget to read the list.
Check it twice.
I did not. That's the problem. Hey, I mentioned some sad news came out of the NFL, and it's sad, but unfortunately it's not that infrequent. About 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, former Dallas Cowboy running back Marion Barber III passed away, and a very sad story.
Yes.
And at first I said, well, that's a sad story, but unfortunately, as I said, it happens far too often. He was 38 years of age, and his family members are saying there is no question that he suffered from CTE.
Right.
Traumatic brain injury
Yep.
that you get from playing in the National Football League. But then I saw a story that followed it up after the fact where Terrence Newman, who played with him with the Cowboys, said he was scared with his last encounter with Marion Barber about how far he had deteriorated mentally and physically. And here's a man who was only 38 years of age when he retired from the National Football League. And you played against him. Cardinals, I went back and looked at it. He had a 6-year career, which is above average for NFL.
Especially running back.
Especially running backs. So he had a 6-year career and did quite well against the Cardinals. In the 5 games he played, he had 4 touchdowns, ran for about 350 yards.
Yep.
And I mentioned this to you, and the first word out of your mouth was
Battering ram. He played like a battering ram. He played like his hair was on fire. He had the dreads, but he never shied away from contact, Mike. He ran towards contact. He loved it. He loved every aspect of the physical style of play, and I had a lot of respect for Marion Barber. And Mike, the fact that he made a Pro Bowl and was not the starting running back on his own team just lets you know the type of respect that he garnered throughout his time in the NFL, and the fact that he was able to have a 10-touchdown season as a non-starter in the backfield, Mike. I mean, when you talk about the evolution of the NFL, it's become a pass-happy league all on its own. And for a guy even then to amass 10 touchdowns in a pass-happy league as a backup running back, that is as impressive as it gets. And for him to have met his untimely demise so early, definitely thoughts and prayers go out to his family. I know his dad was a player, and I know former University of Minnesota star. A lot of people in the University of Minnesota are still feeling that tremendous loss, and what a great player he was.
The quote from Terrence Newman, and it really hits you at the very end here. He said he wasn't doing too well. He looked bad, like a different person, like he could not function, Newman said. When I tell you I was scared, I thought he was going to swing on me.
Wow.
Talking about a former teammate, and he ran into him at a gas station and said he barely could recognize him. And again, he was only 38 years of age, and to the point where his career had taken that much out of him physically. So, I want to talk to you because obviously as a former player, you and I on the radio show talked about this often. But also I want to get into it from the fans' perspective because you see, and maybe we'll start there. You see a lot of times online, you hear theoretically, high level, people say player safety. I can get behind player safety.
Sure.
I mean, you're my favorite player. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be on the field.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about it that way, everybody's on board. Like, yeah, that's cool. We're going to keep people healthy. But then you watch it real time. You watch a game, and then you watch it on social media, or you listen to people. The referee throws a flag because the player hit him with the crown of his helmet or something like that.
Or a running back got fined because he lowered his head.
And they talk about the wussification of the NFL. Next thing you know, they're going to be playing with flags on.
Yep.
Okay, that's you watching a game on Sunday, drinking a few beers with your buddies, and then you fast forward to stories like Marion Barber III, which is not uncommon, and a direct reason why rules exist in the National Football League.
Mike, you go all the way back to some of the old school players, and it's sad when you think story after story. The one that really comes to mind, first of all, was Mike Webster.
Yeah.
And a guy that was a Hall of Famer, a guy that was an integral part of the Pittsburgh Steelers run, 4 Super Bowls, I believe, in 6 years, where they were absolutely dominant. And there were so many guys. Dave Dorson was another guy that comes to mind, and just so heartbreaking to hear these men who were larger than life figures, Mike, who played the game the way that it was supposed to be played, very physical, very violent, but were good men off the field. And unfortunately, there were things that transpired through that contact that they initiated and that they received at times that really altered their life, Mike, and ultimately caused them their life. It's sad because, I think about my time. I've lost 6 teammates, Mike, not all through CTE, but through various illnesses and whatnot. And, anytime you lose someone before 40, and all my teammates that I've lost were younger than 40 years old, it just makes you wonder, man, was there something that could have been done sooner to help these men? Yeah. And you sit here with all these questions and nothing can make you feel better about the fact that your brother is gone.
Well, and you mentioned that, and you mentioned Mike Webster a minute ago. Google a picture of Mike Webster right before he passed.
Yeah.
He was 50 when he died.
Yeah.
And he could have been 75, and I wouldn't call you a liar looking at that picture.
Mike, I mean, you think about, I said Dave Duerson. Dave Duerson was a part of that great Chicago Bear team in '85. Junior Seau, another guy. I mean, we were on air. We talked about this, and it happened real time while we're on the show. Yep. We heard the news of Junior Seau passing from a gunshot-inflicted wound, and you hear these stories, and it just breaks your heart because you think, what kind of pain must you have been in to want to do something like that to yourself, and to do it in a way where you understand that something's not right. Something's not right, but you just can't convey that to somebody else.
I think that's it, right? Because the traumatic brain injury, which, to your point, maybe not all of them are directly attributable to that, but it's a cause.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
Right? And so when your brain goes like, and I don't know, but you read about it, like you hit the nail on the head, like something's causing it, but you don't know what it is. You can't rectify it in your own mind.
Right.
And so if you're Junior Seau, you take your own life, or with gunshot wound, or other guys,
Dave Duerson, Brian Waters, the list goes on and on, Mike.
Right? And, to your point, at such a young age, so that shows you how quickly they break down. And I go back again, because the Mike Webster one is to the point. You talk about a man who was, when he was playing and even right after he was done playing, larger than life in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Right? Everything he meant to that team.
Absolutely.
And then he was living in his truck.
Yes.
In Pittsburgh. Like, you tell me people in that town, if he went looking for assistance, like they
were more than willing to help him.
Pittsburgh would have taken care of Mike Webster, but he was not Mike Webster anymore.
No, and I think he sold his Super Bowl rings
All
and
of
all
it.
that stuff. I mean, not that that's something that is the final blow, but people have their own feelings about jewelry and memorabilia. But to see a guy that was so big and so strong and a picture of health and a picture of strength, and to think that this man was living in his car at the end, how sad that is. And think that these men harmed themselves in ways that they protected their brains. Usually most people that want to do something like that, they go right to their head.
Right.
But they understood that something wasn't right, but they knew something had to be done to study their head. So they did it in a way to where their head was preserved. Mike, that's so heartbreaking. They wanted to send the message and pay the ultimate price to send that message.
Yeah. No, it is. And again, you and I, all the way back to the Bertrand Berry show on the radio, we talked about this a lot. And you thought last time we talked about it, you were getting checked annually.
Absolutely.
There was a doctor, I believe, in Glendale somewhere where you'd go and get checked. And you said you were never diagnosed with a concussion, during your playing career, high school, Notre Dame, NFL.
No, not one time.
But you still are concerned about it.
Oh, I know I had a concussion. I mean, I know I wasn't diagnosed with one, but there were times where I saw spots. There were times where I had my quote-unquote bell rung. Mm-hmm. And if you would have asked me the right question at the time, I probably wouldn't, I would have given you the right or wrong answer depending on your perspective. Right. So everybody that played the game at a certain level, if you played it in high school, if you played it in college, if you played it on the pro level, you dealt with something. And if you were a guy that was an interior lineman or a running back, a linebacker, or a safety that was a guy that was a physical type safety, a Ronnie Lott or those Adrian Wilson, those type of players, the guys that use that physicality, Brian Dawkins is another guy that comes to mind. You can't tell me that there is no shrapnel from your playing days. Something has been altered. Something has been affected by your playing days. And you may not have the outward appearance that anything is wrong, but deep down when you put your head on that pillow, Mike, that something's wrong. And I had to go get checked because I was seriously concerned. There was so much coming out about it that wasn't readily available to us when we were playing, that once that information came out, I was like, look, I need to go see what's going on, because I don't want to be a quote-unquote victim here. I knew what I was doing when I signed up to play, but if there's some way I can do something to get ahead of this thing and maybe prevent it from spreading, becoming worse, or becoming an issue at all, why wouldn't I take advantage of that? Yeah.
And, it's to your point, what you were signing up for.
And I do it again.
And you do it again, and your son does it.
My son does it.
High school football in this state is huge.
Yep.
And so we've got, players on top of players doing it. And to your point, you hope they're getting coached the right way.
Sure.
That they have decent medical staff.
Right.
But the risk is there.
It's always
there. The risk is there.
Mike, anytime you have large humans running into other large humans, there's going to be there's going to be carnage. There's going to be some fallout from it. And you just hope that these coaches and these medical staffs that are in charge of these youngsters are really able to diagnose and really understand what CTE is and what it looks like, so that they can get ahead of it. If they see a kid that may be struggling and may be in danger, that they can get him out of the game and get the requisite test and the treatment that'll get them back to 100%.
Yeah. And just finish this up real quickly, where we started with, the fans, right? The fan reaction, like the wussification of the NFL. I don't know how you can look at an NFL game and say that, it's a wussification. You might not like the rules. You might not understand the rules.
Sure.
And it's different. Deacon Jones, you talk about a guy who made the head slap famous, which would not be legal today.
It is not legal.
But, so it's different.
Yep.
But people are a hell of a lot bigger.
Yep.
A hell of a lot stronger.
A hell of a lot faster.
And a hell of a lot faster. And we were talking about this off air, that you train year-round now.
Absolutely.
So that is your job.
With the money that's in it, you can afford to train year-round.
So you are a bigger, stronger, faster.
All the time. And you're able to go longer even too. So, it's the game is constantly evolving, but the rules are not going to be able to keep up with the evolution of the players, because the players, and their bodies and the way that they're able to manipulate their bodies to be able to go out and do the things that they're asked to do, technology is always going to be a half step behind.
Marion Barber dead at the age of 38 years
Rest in
of
peace,
age.
brother.
Yeah.
Rest
All
in
right.
peace.
On the other side, some more NFL news and notes on Train and Gross.
Train and Gross.
Welcome back in. Train and Gross. Give us a follow on Twitter at Train and Gross.
Simple
that
enough.
easy, man.
Simple enough. Mike, is there an update on the hockey game? Is it still 3-3?
Live scoring update here from the train station studios as we check the scoreboard. NHL Game 1, 3-3 end. I said it was the end of the third period, excuse me. End of the second period.
In the second period. Wow.
Good thing it's a podcast. People already know the score by the time they watch
That's
this.
all right.
But it's 3-3 end of 2.
Wow.
Avs and the Lightning tied it up.
So there's been a lot of fireworks in that game.
A lot of fireworks. All right, getting into the NFL. Everybody concerned about the Arizona Cardinals and the quarterback situation. What about your center?
Yeah. Inexcused absence is what they called it.
And it sounded like people were surprised by it.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to our good friend Ron Wolfley on the radio, driving around doing errands yesterday, and Wolf was processing real time, trying to make heads or tails, and he said, "Look, when you hear it's unexcused and the coach says we got things to work out, that's not a good thing." And you look at this team, and obviously the quarterback gets all the attention.
Yep.
But Rodney Hudson, you look at kind of an anchor of that offensive line.
Do you remember when he was out last year?
Yeah.
Bad snaps over the quarterback's head.
It's awful.
Couldn't get the run game going in the red zone. I mean,
But
yeah,
he missed like 2 or 3 games with COVID.
He is a big part of what they do offensively.
So, Mike,
part.
since we've been doing radio together for the better part of a decade plus, the one thing that I always try to instill into you is follow the money. When you have situations where guys are not showing up and there's discrepancies, they're not having discrepancies about playing time. We know Rodney Hudson is the best center on this team. We know Rodney Hudson is probably one of the better centers in the entire NFC.
No doubt.
So when you talk about why his services are being withheld, it always comes down to the money. And when you talk about your center being disgruntled, you talk about your quarterback being disgruntled, and you lost your best defensive player in Chandler Jones because he was disgruntled about money. It just makes you wonder what is going on.
Yeah, well, and apparently, reading the tea leaves, Kyler is happy because he's in camp, and that means that.
Well, that means he's happy. That just means that he's willing to work with.
Or there's progress behind the scenes.
Yes.
Rodney Hudson, when he got traded over from the Raiders, they did the contract 3-year, $30 million deal. So this is year 2 of the 3-year deal, scheduled to make like 10.5 this year.
Okay.
So I don't know where that ranks in centers, but you're right, because they were, again, our good friend Wolf, and this is where Wolf's at his best, like in real time, and he's processing, like he's just saying what he's thinking, and he's, well, I know he just had a baby, but that'd be an excused absence, and he's going through the whole list of things, and he goes, "This is not good, brothers. This is a contract." This is exactly what he said.
It's always the money, Mike. Always follow the money. When you talk about professional sports and all the money that is being poured into these sports leagues, you always have to think about the money and what people are thinking about. You can even go golf. Who knew golf would have that situation that they're dealing with now with LIV and the PGA Tour?
That's a whole different story.
That's a whole mess.
Right.
But
you're right.
The thing that it comes back down to is the money. Whenever there is TV money and when there's professional money to be made for excellence, there's always going to be some sort of feelings involved around money. So I think with Rodney Hudson, hopefully this thing can get resolved sooner than later. Here with the Cardinals, we've seen it around the league. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is back in camp with the Baltimore Ravens. He has a situation where he's looking to get a big payday, and the Ravens are like, well, we want to pay him, but he keeps holding out. Like he's singularly focused on winning. Yeah, that sounds good. But the reality is he's raising the stakes. He's betting on himself yet again, and he feels that if he goes out and plays well again, that he's going to be a guy that is going to be even more handsomely compensated than one Deshaun Watson.
So you've got Daniel Snyder, owner of the Washington Commanders, the Commies.
Oh.
He was summoned to testify in front of Congress.
Yep. No good.
Because of all the issues with that team, and he politely declined. He said, "I'm busy that day, can't come."
You know, the thing that's so funny about that, Mike, is he is the owner of the team in Washington.
Right there.
And you can't come, you're too busy. When you get that, I want to know what that envelope looks like. That when you get some,
you got the dreaded FedEx package as a player.
Yeah, we got the dreaded FedEx package. I don't know what that package looks like. I mean, it's probably got a whole lot of stamps on it. It's probably got a whole lot of eagles. Because the Eagles is that that official bird. You know what I mean? So I almost cringe to think what that envelope looks like when you're being summoned to that house.
I got to believe with the headlines that just keep coming out, and we talked about this, and until it actually happens, it's pure speculation, but the other owners got to be growing weary. There's, as part of this story where he's refusing to go testify in front of Congress, they indicated that the NFL has hired a separate attorney to deal with the Washington Commanders.
Wow.
So on top of the story that broke a couple weeks ago where the Commanders are stealing money from the rest of the league, the revenue sharing that goes on, now they're spending money to have what do they call it, a in-house counsel, whatever, to deal specifically with one of your teams, one of your owners.
Yeah.
That cannot sit well
No.
with the other 31 owners.
No, Mike, I mean, it can't sit well at all, just like the lawsuit in St. Louis didn't sit well at all with the owners. I mean, in recent history, these guys have been their feathers have been ruffled because they've had to cut some checks that they didn't really necessarily want to have to cut. And anytime that they have to cut checks that they don't want to cut, they want to make somebody else responsible and pick up the slack for that money that they're actually losing.
Deshaun Watson.
Wow.
The story that keeps on giving.
Mike, I have been a Deshaun Watson supporter. I have been a guy that has, in many situations, defended him. Mike, 66 is hard to defend. 66 in 17 months, that's really hard to defend.
And now 26 suits against him.
So I know that he may not have done anything criminal, but Mike, I'm gonna say this as a guy that used my body as a livelihood. I still use my body as a livelihood. I am very particular about who touches my body. Mike, I played 13 years in the NFL, 12 that were credited. I can count on one hand the number of individuals that touched my body. And not all of them were female. So to have 66 different women in under a year and a half, 66?
Yeah.
Some numbers that they just jump out more than others. Like his 230 guaranteed, that jumps out. But 66 different women to quote-unquote massage you. Again, you may not have done anything criminally, but when you talk about a bad look,
right,
it is an awful look for one Deshaun Watson. And I think the court of public opinion is not going to be able to get past that, because it's kind of like this. It's kind of like that big elephant in the room, Mike. It's like you like Deshaun Watson. He's done a lot of good things for the NFL, but damn, 66.
Well, and the other thing too, and you're right, all that I get. Now that this is coming to light, now this is like, don't talk. Don't talk.
But I like what he did, Mike. I like what he said in that news conference. He didn't say that he didn't have something wrong. He just said he didn't force anybody.
Right.
That's not saying that something didn't happen. So, the fact that he came out and he stood tall, he didn't read a statement, Mike. He didn't fumble over any type of written down, pre-written speech. I like that aspect of it. And he tried to keep it as short as he could without having to answer the questions. But I like what you said. But I do like the point that he did stand up there and say, listen, I am not guilty of what I'm accused of.
I understand that, and maybe I watch too much Law and Order on TV. Wait till it plays out.
Right.
Wait, you can say whatever you want after the fact. Particularly now with this team, and I understand they got a 1-year deal up front on the way they structured this contract. But as this continues to grow, that might not be enough.
Yeah,
that might not be enough. And when you get up in front of the cameras, and I don't disagree with the way you paint this statement. But it just would have felt better for me if I'm the Cleveland Browns, if I'm his legal team, to wait till after this is all in the rearview mirror. It's settled, whatever it is. Because part of his statement was he doesn't regret any of his actions. And I understand none of it was illegal, and I get that. But when you give fodder to the other side, and as Sean said, additional lawsuits have been filed, and going back to what we just talked about with Daniel Snyder, you have linked up your former team as part of this. I just think you got to just no comment right now.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you when this is done.
Mike, I understand, and most times I agree with you. I would say 95% of the time I agree with you. Less is more.
Yeah.
Say less, that's more. But when you are the new guy, you've just been given 230 guaranteed. You know, no matter what happens, if you don't play a down in the NFL again, you're getting $230 million from the Cleveland Browns. You have to say something. You can't just not say anything. Now, if he would have gone up there and had this long soliloquy, then I'd have been like, okay, Deshaun, wrap it up.
Okay.
Let's get this going so we can get back to the football. I thought what he did was, it was calculated. It was something that obviously he had been prepped to do. You got to give his legal team a lot of credit, but it wasn't going to be enough for him to say no comment when, one, you get that kind of guaranteed money and it's that big of a deal to where you are supposed to change life for this organization, a team that is starving for a champion.
Yep.
Starving for a champion. And the moves that they've made and the fact that they've brought in the guys that they've brought in to go alongside of Deshaun Watson, it wasn't going to be enough. He would have come off as weak had he said nothing. So I like the fact that he kept it short and sweet, and he stood his ground. He stuck to his guns. Time will tell what this is going to look like, Mike. But again, 66, damn.
Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Back at practice,
Practice.
excuse me. And the report out of Baltimore is it lifted everyone's spirits to have their quarterback back in the facility.
Mike, that whole system is built around Lamar Jackson. That whole team is built around Lamar Jackson. If he is not there, I don't care who they have as the backup. That backup can be as formidable as they want to be. They are not Lamar Jackson. There's only one player on that roster that has an MVP trophy. That's Lamar Jackson. And so they have put all their eggs in the Lamar Jackson basket. And if he's not there, Mike, it doesn't look like the same team. And I think starting with these mini camps, that these are mandatory mini camps, is just a way for these owners to keep these guys accountable. Because let's face it, life is not going to change for Lamar had he not been to that mini camp. The system hasn't changed. The verbiage hasn't changed. Hell, the personnel really hasn't changed. They've got to stay healthy. Their biggest problem was health last year.
Absolutely.
They lost all of their running backs. They lost receivers. They lost tight ends. They lost offensive linemen. It was a real bad look for they even lost Lamar for a few weeks due to injuries at the end of the season. So this team goes as Lamar Jackson goes. And they understand that he is the unquestioned leader, and they understand that the sooner they get this deal done, the better it'll be for everybody, because now they can put the focus back on the field, which everybody rightfully wants it to be.
And to your point, the way the Baltimore Ravens are constructed is because
everything is about Lamar Jackson. Everything.
And I understand, similar to what the story here in Arizona was like, look, we're going to get it done.
Sure.
Right? These things typically happen in June and July. That's the normal time frame.
Right.
But I would say even more so than Arizona, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, that's not breaking up. So what's what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
So why the drama, I guess? I mean, not for you, but just in general, why the drama? So.
Well, the drama is he's the quarterback, he's the face of the franchise, and if he's not taken care of, quote unquote, playing on a rookie deal, then people are going to speculate as to why.
That part I get 100%, and to me, it's the other side of the coin on the Ravens part. Like, we all know what has to happen.
Yeah.
You give them a number.
Deshaun Watson.
And you're done.
Add a couple mil, we'll be okay.
Give them that, and we're done.
We're done.
Because it was going to happen anyway.
It's going to happen.
It could happen in March. It could happen in July. It was going to happen.
Yes. Another story, Mike, real quick before we get out of here. Devontae Adams dropped a bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Aaron Rodgers, how do you feel right now? A guy that say, yeah, I just got tired of waiting. You know what I mean? Like I left because I didn't know what he was going to do. I mean, I got to take care of me. I got to look out for number one. What do you want me to do? And I understand that. And I think for Aaron, in the back of his mind, at some point, he's got to have that conversation with himself, with whatever he's drinking, because I'm sure he's had something to drink. He's thinking to himself, damn, I cost myself my favorite receiver, my best option, the best receiver he said that he's ever played with. Now, that's saying something because he's had some pretty dang good receivers on his roster during his time.
Sean Crespin has something to say about this.
I got nothing to say about it. It's just it's all gravy, baby.
No, I mean, it's great that he's in Vegas and he's reunited with his college teammate, and I think they're going to make a lot of magic happen. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, a 2-time reigning MVP, you've got to be sitting back thinking like, did I really do the right thing by playing this thing out? I wanted to have them over the barrel, and I did. But it cost me my guy.
And what's his biggest beef been with the organization the last few years?
No receivers, no weapons.
Give me some more weapons. Give me something to, and now he saw the best one walk out the door. So
by his own fault.
Yeah.
Because he was unable to make up his mind on what he wanted to do. People got to remember, Mike, I've talked about this too. We're all individual contractors. It's right. 53 individual contractors. Yeah. Everybody's going to do what's best for themselves. Aaron Rodgers did what was best for him. And Davante Adams, seeing how, hey, he could have tied this up in a nice little bow a lot sooner. He's like, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going to go with a guy that I know is going to have my back. Aaron seems to be enjoying having the benefits that he has as a 2-time MVP. I'm going to go where I'm actually wanted.
Well, yeah, you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And to your point, if you're a wide receiver,
you need to know who's throwing you the ball.
And we talked about that. Look at the quarterbacks that this team that Larry Fitzgerald played for. He had 2 great ones. Mm-hmm. He had your former teammate Kurt Warner, and he had Carson Palmer.
Yep.
In between there
was a lot of
Jordan Love. And if you're Davante Adams, you can understand that.
Yeah.
And I feel, you put this out there and then all of a sudden, questions come and he goes, look, there's a lot that goes into that. Family's important, geography's important. That was just one small part of it. So he's kind of walking it back a little bit because I don't know that I don't know how he didn't expect this, but maybe he didn't think it was going to turn out the way it did. But
Mike, these are grown men.
You own it. You got to own it. You can't. Once you say it, you got to own it.
These are grown men. I mean, and I don't fault Davante Adams at all for what he did. He had to make a decision based on his future because if Aaron would have walked and he was stuck there with Jordan Love, he knows his numbers would have looked a lot different going forward, and it may have affected his legacy overall.
Well, and the big part of that story that came out, they said, look, according to reports, you left money on the table in Green Bay. And he said, yeah, I did.
Because I didn't know it was going to be quarterback.
Well, that's it, exactly.
Why take the money and you're going to get your head kicked in? I'd rather go get the money, get some money, and play with a guy that I know that I can count on, and I know is going to want to have me around and wants to be where he's at.
He confirmed that he left more money on the table to leave Green Bay. And his quote, I'll say it, okay, it was true, period, but a lot more goes into it than that.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the situation. You think about who he's playing with now. He couldn't be happier about that. The fact that the Raiders are a loaded team in a loaded division. My goodness, there's going to be a lot of fireworks at is it Allegiant Stadium? Is that it? Allegiant Stadium. There's going to be a lot of fireworks. There's going to be a lot of points put on the board in that stadium when you think about just the division opponents alone. Yeah. Kansas City rolling in there, Denver rolling in there. I mean, the Chargers rolling in there. Oh, yeah. My goodness, there's I can't wait to see this season unfold. I cannot wait, Mike.
You could put a AFC West game on as the game of the week
every week,
literally all year.
No,
absolutely.
Real quick, we need some breaking news or some newsy type music because Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield still with their teams.
They both are coming off shoulder surgery.
I know.
Teams aren't going to make a move until they're waiting on them to both be cut.
I understand. I'm just saying
from a contractual standpoint, they're waiting on them.
We'll just make that the update. We'll just say still with their teams.
Still with their teams, and I think the Jimmy Garoppolo one, I'm a little perplexed because I don't understand why you're in such a rush to push him out the door. We haven't seen enough of the youngster. We just haven't seen enough, and we've seen Jimmy Garoppolo play in 2 NFC Championships games with this same team, Mike.
And I'll say it, and until proven otherwise, man, the 49ers PR machine is working overtime to get Trey Lance.
They're talking about how Steve Young is mentoring him.
He's staying late,
that to me is not good. Those aren't good headlines.
And
if I'm a 49er fan,
he stuck around after OTAs, and he's really jumping into the work, and he's which is all good. But when you are starting quarterback in the NFL, every NFL quarterback, the first guy in the building, there's stories about that all over the league.
Let me ask you this, as a former player, Jimmy Garoppolo is what he is. We know what he is, but he's also a quarterback that took you to a Super Bowl and also got you back to an NFC Championship game just last year. And I was watching on
one bad throw from going to another Super Bowl.
And you're right. NFL.
If the safety catches that interception,
they go to a Super Bowl
to a Super Bowl again.
But NFL Network had on the Week 18 game between the Niners and the Rams. They had to win to get in.
Yeah.
And he leads them on a under 2-minute drive for a touchdown to push that game into overtime. So let me ask you, as a former player, he's got his faults. But you're a defensive player on that 49er team.
I'm not letting Jimmy Garoppolo
Who do you
go.
want?
I want Jimmy Garoppolo. I want the proven commodity.
How
I
are
want
you feeling
the
right
bird
now?
in the hand.
I'd agree.
I want the bird in the hand. I want the guy that has taken me to an NFC Championship game twice and a Super Bowl. There are a lot of great young players in the NFL right now. None of them have the resume that Jimmy Garoppolo has right now, to his credit.
And here's a term
they may have it, they may have it in the future, but they don't have the current resume that Jimmy G has right now.
Here's a term that gets thrown around probably too much by media members: lost the locker room. But let me ask you this: if you're the 49ers, Jimmy G ends up being cut or traded away, you start out 1-3 because the new kid just doesn't have it. How you feeling? How is it? Would they be walking a line of?
Oh, I'd be pissed.
But would the organization be walking a line to where they could, quote unquote, lose the locker room?
You guys. We don't have to tiptoe around this. I went through this. We went through this with the Cardinals. Remember, we had Matt Leinart. Mm-hmm. We had Kurt Warner. Mm-hmm. We went with the proven commodity. Things worked out.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner. They there were times where people thought he looked washed. They thought he looked done. And there was a time when I think we were playing Atlanta, where you had Matt Leinart being interviewed, and they were asking him, would he be the starter next week? And Denny Green walks up behind him and says, Matt Leinart will be the starter next week. And it still worked out to where, when it was all said and done, Kurt Warner was the right choice.
I remember you guys had almost two packages, one for Matt, one for Kurt.
They went series for series.
Kurt would come in the 2-minute situations and it would go bing, boom, boom, score. And you're going, why the hell isn't he the star? I'm sitting at home screaming at the TV. Why is he not your starting quarterback?
Because you had a number 10 overall pick and a guy that was a Heisman Trophy winner from USC that had won just about everything that you could win in college. Yeah. So
and everybody saw Denny Green saying he will be the starter.
He will be the starter. So I've lived this. Yeah. And I'm telling you, we all to a man, there was no question Kurt was the better player. And when they gave Kurt the job in 2008, everything skyrocketed from there. Yeah. We all know what happened after that. So the rest is history. So when you start talking about a bird in the hand and a proven commodity as a player that has a finite window to win, you only have 3 or 4 maybe cracks at it to really have a legitimate shot to go to a Super Bowl and win that ultimate prize. I want somebody that's been there and done that. Yeah. I don't want a rookie. I don't want a guy, or not a rookie. I don't want a guy that's young and doesn't have that experience yet.
I think it just tests the professionalism of the guys in that locker room. Like, I've always thought the whole lose the locker room thing in the NFL is ridiculous because you're dealing with grown men and professionals, right?
Yeah.
But you see how, like, go back through NFL history. The one that always comes to mind to me right away is the 2000 Ravens, right, where their offense couldn't score. They had to basically try to shoot shutouts week in and week out.
And they did.
And they went and won a Super Bowl.
Yep.
But that just spoke volumes of the leadership on that side of the football, the professionalism of that side of the football. I think those situations have to test that aspect of a professional athlete.
No question. And I'll actually throw this in too as an extra nugget. Don't think for 1 second this doesn't have something to do with Deebo Samuel. Because if Deebo Samuel is getting passes from Trey Lance, it looks a lot different than Jimmy Garoppolo, because Jimmy Garoppolo showed that that Deebo Samuel was one of his favorite targets.
Yep.
And so if I'm Deebo Samuel and I'm asking for this money and I'm wanting to, if I got to go back and bet on myself again, guess who I want as my quarterback? I want the guy that was feeding me the ball at least 7-8 times per game, and a guy that was putting me in position to be successful, to make plays. Because with Trey Lance, it's gonna feel different because he's got a different knowledge of the system. Jimmy Garoppolo knows the systems backwards and forwards. He may not have always been available due to injuries, but when you talk about a knowledge of the system and when he's healthy, how that team looks with him under center. If I'm Deebo Samuel, I'm pushing hard to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, because selfishly I know my stats are going to look so much better if I'm getting passes from Jimmy G as opposed to Trey Lance.
Trey Lance started the game here, right? And I think that was the only game he started this year. Deebo Samuel, 3 catches for 58 yards. Have you guys seen the Jimmy Garoppolo Subway commercial?
Yes.
My goodness, he's a handsome man.
Yeah. I mean,
Come on.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If that matters.
He kind of reminds me of Superman back in the day. He looks like
bit.
Dan
I see
Reeves.
that.
A little bit.
Dan Reeves. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like you see him, like you just think he should have an S on his chest and a cape flowing in the wind.
He holds up that Italian whatever he's selling at Subway, and his tooth, ding.
Yeah. I mean,
Is this a Subway commercial or a toothpaste commercial?
I mean, my goodness.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
He's a good-looking man. Can't hate on him.
All right, every week we'll give an update till we have resolution with
Right.
Garoppolo and Mayfield. All right, on the other side, pump the brakes
And
dad jokes.
Yeah.
I'll never be a TV weatherman. I point the wrong way. Coming up on Train and Grose.
Yeah.
Welcome back in. Final segment, Train and Grose. We got Pump the Brakes coming up.
Yeah.
Got dad jokes.
All right.
Before I do this, I wrote this down at the very beginning of the show and I forgot about it.
All right.
Okay, what do you got?
Break it to me.
Quick quiz for you.
Come on.
One team in collegiate sports this year. College football playoffs, NCAA March Madness, College World Series. What's that one school?
That would be the University of Notre Dame.
Cheer, cheer my ass.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I like it.
And I'm all in. I
Took down number 1 Tennessee in baseball.
in their own yard.
Proud of them.
In their own yard.
But Tennessee was so unlikable, though. They were a cocky group. I mean,
Cocky lot.
Yeah,
All right. All good with that. I'm going to
Yeah.
give you the Notre Dame thing. Like, I wish them well in Omaha.
That's right.
It's good to have the Irish there.
That's right.
Their uniforms,
Leaves a lot to be desired.
dude.
The blue on blue with the gold helmet. Yeah.
And the piping on these things, and I love Twitter, and there are some really clever.
And the English Irish, yeah. I mean, the cursive Irish, yeah. It doesn't work.
This person, I have no idea who she is. Her name is Karen Howell. I was
Okay.
going through this because I was watching. I was like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm old school and I don't like these Under Armour uniforms. Karen Howell, here's her tweet. Respect that Notre Dame could let Maria Von Trapp use old curtains to make their uniforms.
Wow.
And she ain't wrong.
Wow.
She ain't wrong. Did you see these things?
I did see him.
They're a monstrosity.
Yeah.
I hope they ditch them and get something better. I hope the people at Under Armour were listening and give them something better when they get to Omaha. Sean Crespin, take it away.
Now, Under
go
Armour can put it out there, but Notre Dame still has the final okay. So Notre Dame okayed that, which is that's on my alma mater. all right?
Somebody needs to.
That's on my alma mater.
Somebody needs to answer for that. Sean Crespin, take it away.
Pump the brakes. You guys know how it works. I'm going to toss out statements from the world of sports, maybe a little pop culture. You tell me if you're pumping the brakes on that or if you're going to roll with it. Cliff Kingsbury quoted today, quote, "I'm praying before training camp. I just want him there day one of training camp." That's Cliff Kingsbury talking about his quarterback, Kyler Murray, on whether or not the contract will be done. So pump the brakes or not, Kyler Murray will have himself a new contract by day one of training camp.
I say pump the brakes. I think for Kyler Murray, he's going to be trying to ask for Deshaun Watson money. I think he's going to look for that kind of guaranteed money. And I think the Cardinals are going to look at him and be like, no, you got 2 years left on your deal. We'll see you in a year. And I think for Cliff Kingsbury, he's married at the hip of Kyler Murray. He was hired specifically to coach up one Kyler Murray. So the fact that he's worried that his franchise quarterback won't be in camp I think he has good reason to worry. Nobody knows him better than Coach Kingsbury, and I think he understands his temperament. We saw this guy scrub his social media accounts,
Instagram and everything else.
You know what I mean, with anything Cardinal on it. So he's shown that he's not willing to just accept anything. He's not backing down. He's not going to go quietly. So I could easily see this being a situation that lingers into the season.
He'll be there.
No, not he'll be there. He will have a new contract.
He'll be there day one with a new contract.
He will be, okay.
He will be. It'll be done.
Okay.
It'll be done.
See,
and I get what you're saying about the comparison with Lamar Jackson. And in my mind, again, if we're kids playing pickup in the backyard and Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray are on the wall and you got one pick,
I'm taking Lamar.
Taking Lamar. Yeah. I get that. So to your point around, does Kyler get Lamar Jackson money? No. All things being equal.
Depends on what Lamar Jackson gets. Does he get Deshaun Watson money?
I understand all that, but at some point, similar to what we were saying about the Ravens, Cardinals don't have any choice. What are they going to do? You're going to play hard. No, you can't. He's going to.
But you can, and that's why I think what B-Train said is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray should ask for Deshaun Watson money because it doesn't kill you to ask, right? That you should always reach for the stars. But the Arizona Cardinals should also say,
give him a number that he's happy to put his line on.
I'll see you next year.
His name on the dotted line, and it'll be done.
Yeah.
I thought the question when you were rolling it out was Rodney Hudson.
Yeah.
Will he be there? Because to me, that's
he's as valuable. Yes.
He's that valuable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Rodney Hudson has options maybe that Kyler Murray doesn't.
We've seen life without Rodney Hudson's not good.
And Rodney Hudson's 30 some odd years old. He's made $75-ish million in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know Rodney Hudson. We've never talked about it, but if he was smart with his money, he said, screw this, I don't need this anymore, I'm done.
He can do that.
Not unheard of for a 33-year-old to walk.
He had no problems forcing his way out of Las Vegas.
Understood.
None.
Understood. But
to me, it's a different situation. It was a different situation.
Very true.
If the question is 1A Kyler Murray, 1B is Rodney Hudson right now.
No question.
The NFL already has now 18 weeks. George Kittle advocating for 19 weeks, but what he's saying is the NFL needs 2 bye weeks. Says he spends a couple $100,000 on body upkeep each and every year. So I'll start with you, B-Train. Having been somebody who's been there and done that, the NFL needs 2 bye weeks. Pump the brakes or not?
I would say pump the brakes. I understand why he would want two bye weeks because you've added another game, which is more wear and tear in your body. But we are professionals. It's not as if you have to do another job. It's not as if you have some other obligations to be accountable for. Your whole job all year long is to get yourself ready to play from September to February. So however you get that done, you got to get that done. And however many games you have to play to go win a championship, you're going to play more than 16 anyway. So if you want to win a championship, you better be locked in for 20 games, no matter what happens. So, no, 1 bye week is plenty. And if you play well enough, you'll get the additional bye week when it comes to playoffs anyway.
There you go. And I'll take the flip side of that argument and say give it to him. Give him that extra bye week.
Okay.
Again, and it's interesting hearing it from a guy like George Kittle, and I looked it up while B-Train was talking. George Kittle has played, in his 5-year career, has played a full season once. And if you're a 49ers fan, you absolutely love the way this guy plays. Like, you never question him for 1 second when he's out there. But the wear and tear, he played as few as 8, but always missed at least 1, 2. Last year he missed 3 games with injuries. You saw it when he played the Cardinals and we won a couple years ago.
Low hit, right?
He got to
not a dirty hit, but just happened to be a low hit.
Hyperextension of the knee. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you look at it from a business standpoint, it allows the NFL to stretch that season by a year. Ding, 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 ding. Then you're getting really close if they're not there to the President's Day weekend. You get that damn NFL holiday that you want anyway.
Right. So and that's where I was going to go with this because as a football junkie, it gives me one more Sunday watching the NFL. Now, my favorite team might not be playing an extra game, but it does give me another weekend of sitting my butt there watching, 9 hours straight.
Stretch it for a weekend. You're already playing mid-February anyway.
Right.
What it was February 8th was the Super Bowl this year, I think.
Yeah, it was something like that.
No, it was the 13th.
Was it the 13th?
Yeah.
Then you're 1 week away from President's Day weekend. Mm-hmm. Stretch it out a week. You have a 3-week play at Super Bowl Sunday. Everybody gets Monday off anyway. I think it's perfect. Wow. Most everybody gets Monday off. You got a volleyball tournament to work.
Next question, Steph Curry. He belongs in the conversation with the Bill Russells, the Wilt Chamberlains, the Michael Jordans as the most influential players in NBA history.
Oh, I'm not pumping the brakes on that. He has literally changed the game. The fact that the three-point shot has become the weapon that it is, that is primarily due to Steph Curry weaponizing the three-point line. The fact that he can shoot from anywhere over half court, you have to pick him up that far out, and it opens up the lanes for so many other guys. He gets so many other guys involved, and the fact that he's such an unselfish superstar, he doesn't have to have the ball in his hand. He's not ball dominant. He's not dribble for 20 seconds and then having to bail the team out with a shot. The ball moves, and when he's the guy that's starting that, he's the guy that gets everybody else going, how can you not follow his lead and be the guy that helps him get to where he wants to go?
Initially, I was going to pump the brakes, but I agree, and it's something you said, Sean, about how he's changed the game. Because you think about the first two men that you mentioned, physically imposing, right? And then the way Michael Jordan played.
He physically imposed, but he mentally imposed.
Exactly. And at first, Steph Curry at first blush doesn't necessarily fit either of those bills. But when
you better know where he is.
You better know where he is, and something you talk about all the time when we're talking about Hall of Fames. Can you tell the story of the NBA in the late 20-teens and early 2020s without talking about and probably putting at the top of the list Steph Curry?
Yeah.
So no,
only unanimous MVP.
You can't pump the brakes. You can't.
No, I saw him. I was working the NBA All-Star Game in Dallas in 2010, so he's in the league at that point, like a year or so, right?
Yeah, 2 years. I think he came in 2008.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there killing time watching practice. And so it's really lighthearted. You know how All-Star games are. I mean, you played in the NFL version of it. Super lighthearted. Right. So they get into this line of shooting the ball from the opposite free throw line. Okay, so all like 24, 26 players, whatever it is, all shooting from the other free throw line. Nobody's hitting it. Steph Curry comes up, bam, drains it. I mean, literally nothing but net. Place goes crazy, and there's nobody in there but the players and coaches.
Right.
So they go through the line again. It gets back to Steph Curry. Guys start making bets. And damn if he doesn't step up and back second time in a row now at this point from the opposite free throw line.
Again.
Drains it without hitting net or without hitting rim, and I'm going, this guy, there's something here.
He's special.
This was before he had that all open, green light to shoot from anywhere half of the free throw, the mid, half court line.
Yeah.
It was, but you could just see it there. The guy's incredible. He absolutely incredible. So I'm not pumping the brakes on that either.
I would even go this far, and I heard Stephen A. Smith, who a guy, take him for what he's worth. He actually made the argument that he deserves to be in that top 10 before Wilt Chamberlain. Because when you talk about Wilt Chamberlain, you have to talk about Bill Russell.
Yeah.
And when you talk about Bill Russell, now Bill Russell had a better team. He had more Hall of Famers on his team than Wilt Chamberlain ever did. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the head-to-head, 11 rings to 2.
Yeah.
Wilt Chamberlain has 2 championship rings. 11 to 2.
Yeah.
That's glaring. That's a wow stat.
And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole now, but maybe in the future. But you just mentioned, if Wilt Chamberlain would have been on the Celtics instead of the Sixers.
Oh, God.
Or, we talk about Barry Sanders, if he would have been on the
Cowboys. Oh, God.
Right?
Oh, God.
You talk about all-time greats.
But if you're the best of the best, you
shouldn't matter.
You should be able to get more than 2, though. If you're the best, there's only 5 on the court.
Well, I was just going to say, for Wilt, absolutely. For Barry,
yeah,
it's a harder argument.
It's hard.
I get what you're saying.
11 to 2 now. I mean, we're talking about championships. Yep. My man doesn't even have enough fingers for all of his rings. Bill Russell. And for all of the dominance that Wilt Chamberlain had, he only got 2 to show for it.
Take that, Tom Brady.
He lost a lot to Bill Russell.
1 week from tomorrow. It'll be June 23rd. It'll be the NBA draft. Pump the brakes or not, DeAndre Ayton will be a Phoenix Sun on June 24.
Pump the brakes.
Really?
If I'm DeAndre Ayton, everything that I have as far as real estate in Arizona is up for sale. I just don't see him as that piece for this Phoenix Suns. Again, we said this last week. There are at least 3 guys that I put in immediate, as far as importance, ahead of DeAndre Ayton. And if you have 3 guys in front of you, how can you ever ask for a max deal when you're not even the 3rd option on your own team? Now, if somebody else is sucker enough to say, hey, he's what we're missing to make a championship run, I couldn't do the deal fast enough if I'm James Jones.
Yep. I think we said that last week.
Couldn't do it fast enough.
I'm pumped. What am I doing? Am I pumping the brakes or not? He's not going to be here. I mean, you Google it, and I know media is what it is. But, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. And, you know, you've got all kinds of trade destinations. Toronto, Orlando, Houston. I saw a very interesting article about the Rockets. You look at teams that are picking in the top part of the draft that also have some salary trade-off that you can make work. I think it's going to happen, and you know, for the reason that you outlined. And I just can't get out of my mind, as beloved and respected as Monty Williams is. You know, here it's all. I haven't ever heard it presented this way, but if you're James Jones and you're having these conversations with Monty Williams, you got to back up your coach. And
Absolutely.
Like, he disrespected the coach that way.
The coach of the year, by the way.
Exactly. So no.
I got 2. Can I do 2 more?
Yeah.
I got 2 food related.
Oh, you know how you love your polls.
Food related. Yeah, that's where these both come from. Well, one of them does at least. An annual survey on America's favorite vegetables just came out. Any idea on what landed at number 1?
Carrot.
Incorrect.
Vegetable?
Yeah.
Corn.
Pump the brakes or not, the best vegetable is broccoli.
Ugh.
No, pump the brakes. I'll take cauliflower over broccoli.
I agree with that.
now.
According to this survey, broken down by state.
I'll take cabbage over broccoli right
I'm
now.
not going to go that far.
I will go that
not
far.
going
I
that
will
far.
take broccoli. Or cabbage.
Broccoli's there's the number 1 vegetable in 29
Who the hell did this poll?
29 states.
Out of 50?
Broccoli comes out number 1. Corn came in second. 11 states say corn is the number 1 vegetable to them. And carrots came in number 1 in 10 states. Those are your top 3. Broccoli, corn, and carrots.
And while we're talking about vegetables, don't give me cauliflower pizza or like if you want cauliflower, fine, but give me you don't need to turn it into pizza crust.
You ever have cauliflower cooked like buffalo wings?
Yeah.
If you haven't, you need to go get some right now.
Yeah. No, but
Right.
Somebody
now.
tried to foist off pizza crust with cauliflower, like
Yeah.
cauliflower pizza crust.
Yeah, no.
Come on.
No.
If I'm gonna have pizza, I'm gonna have pizza.
So
I mean, I'm gonna go collard greens though. For vegetables,
Yeah.
collard greens.
You know what I eat an absolute ton of, and you wouldn't do it because I cook it with my salmon, is asparagus. That's probably the number 1.
I like asparagus.
That's probably the number 1 vegetable.
It just
consumed in my house.
It makes the urine smell.
It sure does.
I've grown more and more fond of asparagus over the years. Didn't like it as a kid, but I've grown more
cook
fond
a
of it.
ton of it lately with
The
my
smell.
salmon, so I'm gonna have
hold your nose. Hold your
Yeah.
nose when you eat it though.
Yeah. You? Corn?
Carrots.
Carrots.
Corn for me.
That's why I'm wearing glasses. I'm the only one in this conversation wearing
wow.
glasses now.
Quickly,
Yeah.
last
What's
one
up
here. According to some experts, you can absolutely forget about the quote-unquote best buy date on your food. Don't worry about it when it's passed. Milk, as long as it passes the sniff test, you're good. Eggs, you can basically ignore the date it says as long as it passes the float test. Pasta's good to eat up to 2 years after the date. Cheese, way after the date as well. So pump the brakes or not, you're good with eating food beyond that date that's on the package.
Oh, I'm pumping the brakes. Because for one, who is the research department that actually did this research? Like, who are the people who were the guinea pigs that were eating this outdated food?
Here, I will.
I don't know who was willing to take that chance.
I can go both ways on this one. Like I am guilty. Like if there's something in the fridge, I'll just reach in and if that's what I want to eat, I'll just eat it. And then afterwards, Karen will be like, "Dude, this is expired."
But like, say you grab, some ground beef that you bought, and the sticker date is like 2 days past. Are you cooking it? Are you rolling the dice on that?
So
what's your cutoff?
That takes forever.
What's your cutoff?
Go ahead, Mike.
To your point, like there's certain stuff I'm okay with, cheese and eggs and stuff. Meat, I ain't messing around with meat, man. Especially the way it's processed.
I would agree with that.
That scares me.
I'd agree with that.
And we haven't had red meat in the house, but even chicken is scary too. Like, I don't messing around with that. But the other side of the coin is the sniff test. I don't know if this happens to either one of you guys in my house. If the milk's bad, like smell it. you don't need to come to me and say, smell this. Is this bad?
No, you know it's bad. You know what it smells like. You know what bad milk smells like.
Like I'm going to overrule you and you're going to say.
I'm so guilty.
No, it's good. Pour me a glass.
I mean, everybody does it, right? Oh, this is terrible. Smell this. You know what I mean? People always do that. Like, why would I want to smell it?
Yeah, you just showed me it doesn't smell great. No.
Get that out of here. Get that mess out of here.
Get that weak stuff out of here.
I'm good with certain foods. I agree. Certain foods, all right, I'll push that date on the deal.
Because every time you turn on the news, man, somebody's recalling ground beef because of salmonella.
Meats, I'm good.
Yeah.
Pump the brakes on the meats. All right, time for dad jokes of the week. B-Train's famous dad joke. For those of you joining us for the first time, there is a grading system to his dad joke each week. No matter what, he's going to get one of these. It's a quality dad joke.
That's right.
You're going to hear the laughter. If it's above and beyond, you're going to get the standing ovation. But there's always that chance, and I believe, was it 2 weeks ago? Came close to it.
No, stop.
Where you're going to get one of those.
No, that was last week where Mike
Was it last week?
That's
right. It was Grose that wanted to hit the button.
Dude, he's living rent-free between your ears on this one. There's no chance he's pushing the green button.
I have hit that thing like 4 times at this point.
Just as an example. Could be.
3 times.
Three times?
Could be.
All right. Here we go.
3 times out of 75, by the way. It's
pretty good.
It's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. All right, here we go. What do you call a man with no arms or legs in the middle of the ocean? Bob.
That one is good. That one is good. What'd you think?
I was laughing before he said it because I knew what was coming.
See, because he's bobbing up and down.
I know.
Yeah. I never know if you get it.
Thanks.
Wow.
Hang on a minute, Sean. Can you translate that for me? Shut up. I'll punch you in the throat.
I didn't quite get that. Can you run that back, please?
Oh, that's good.
Punch you in the throat.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this week's edition of Train and Gross, episode number 75. Next week, I'm going to be on the road, so maybe we'll do this remotely.
Yeah.
We'll hope that wherever I'm setting up camp, we'll have decent Wi-Fi.
Hopefully, we'll still have some hockey, man.
I don't know. Well, hey, real quickly.
It's a week.
I think we would.
I mean, they're playing like every 3 days, like NBA?
I think ABC's in charge of the schedule, to your point. So whatever they're doing, we'll see.
We should be about game 4, game 5.
Now they're going to overtime in game 1. So game 1, they're getting extra hockey. You know it's going to be that kind of series.
I like it.
Bertrand Berry, Sean Crespin. I'm Mike Gross. We'll see you next time.
We'll holla.